Joe Rogan recently went viral for all of the wrong reasons, and I think we need to talk about it because people like Joe Rogan played a much larger influence in the 2024 election than I think anybody anticipated. Now, I'm not saying that Kamala Harris would have won had she gone and done a conversation with Rogan, but what I am saying is that Donald Trump was able to utilize alternative media to tap into voters that normally aren't following politics on a day-to-day basis. And if they are getting their political takes from somebody like Rogan, they might be getting a twisted understanding of some of the different things that are going on in the world. So today I want to take a look at this video where Joe Rogan is lashing out at the Biden administration and Ukraine for using long-range missiles to strike strategic targets inside of Russia. I think this is a huge deal because I've heard this sentiment all over the right-wing media ecosystem where people do not think we should be standing with our ally and fighting back against the authoritarian Russia. So let's go ahead and take a look at this video. I will pause it along the way and provide a little bit of commentary, and then we will go from there.
The world we're living in now, and that's LA, and that's New York, and that's a lot of places that got fucked up by incompetent people.
I don't know. I just feel safer knowing, like...
Pull this microphone with your face.
I feel safer knowing that Trump is in office.
I do too.
I feel great about it. Like, I just like...
What I don't feel safer is right now they're launching missiles into Russia.
Yeah.
How are you allowed to do that when you're on the way out? Like, the people don't want you to be there anymore. There should be like some sort of a pause for like significant actions that could potentially start World War III.
I am really getting sick of hearing this type of rhetoric coming from the right. We elect our leaders for 4 years. Joe Biden will be governing until he leaves office. They would not accept this argument if the tables were turned and we were telling Donald Trump to stop things because somebody else had already been elected. That is just not how our system works. And this is the same type of rhetoric or the same type of excuse that was used when Mitch McConnell denied Barack Obama a Supreme Court justice appointment. This is just not the way our government works, and we need to dispel this notion that maybe presidents should just stop what they're doing because somebody was elected in November. This is absolutely ludicrous.
Maybe that would be a good thing that we would like to avoid from a dying former president.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing is nuts.
I mean, look, I don't know shit about politics.
Zelensky says Putin is terrified. Fuck you, man. Fuck you people.
This really gets under my skin. He's telling Zelensky to go fuck off when it was Russia, when it was Putin who decided to invade a sovereign country in Ukraine. Where is the condemnation of people like Putin? Instead, it sounds like Joe Rogan is on Putin's side here. We should be standing with our ally Ukraine and fighting back against the tyrannical Putin who wants to knock down borders and start taking land from people. This is just unacceptable for an American to be talking this way. If we want to be like men of our word, or we want to be a country that people can count on, we need to stand up with our allies when they are invaded by an authoritarian regime like Putin. I don't think this is too hard to understand.
You fucking people are about to start World War III.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Russia fired a missile today.
I feel like
they fired an intercontinental ballistic missile for the first time ever. It's the first time one of those has ever been used.
That's insanity.
It's fucking insanity, because those intercontinental ballistic missiles can have nukes on them. This one didn't, but if it does, the whole world changes. And it changes because of the military-industrial complex, and it changes because of the money that's going to Ukraine, and it changes because the outgoing president or whoever the fuck is actually running the country has decided to do something fucking insane.
So there's a couple things to address here. Biden is running his own administration. This is a continued trope that we continue to hear from people in the right-wing media ecosystem. Biden's not really the one pulling the strings. There's somebody else who's coordinating everything. That's just not true. Biden is making the decisions. There is no proof to the otherwise. So we also need to dispel with this type of conspiracism. The other thing he said there is that Russia used an intercontinental ballistic missile, which is normally used to deliver nuclear payload. Joe Rogan is right about this. This is the first time that type of weapon has been used in combat, but it is more likely that Putin used this weapon to freak people out like Joe Rogan than anything else. Putin wants to be the one to escalate things. Putin wants to be the one who always feels like he is in control. So he will do things like this to freak people like Joe Rogan out. That way they jump on Russian propaganda's side and start pushing these narratives. There is no reason Ukraine should not be able to use long-range missiles to defend themselves against the aggressor, Russia. Where is the condemnation from Joe Rogan against Russia? And again, we would not take this argument if the tables were turned. If a country invaded us, you best be sure that we would use anything in our arsenal to defend ourselves. If Mexico was lobbing missiles into United States territory, we wouldn't just sit back and say, no, we're not going to shoot missiles into their territory. That is an insane proposition, and Joe Rogan would not agree with that method if the tables were turned.
Yeah,
Fucking insane. And we're all sitting there watching it, and people are cheering it on. CNN was saying, like, finally. See what their headline was about Zelensky about Biden giving Zelensky the ability to use long-range missiles.
I don't want to read too far into this, but it's really telling to me that Joe Rogan said, find CNN's headline, instead of find CNN's article. See what actually went down. It would not surprise me at all if people like Joe Rogan just read the headlines. It's kind of easy to spot because he clearly doesn't have an understanding of what is actually going on over there. He is easily duped by Russian propaganda and continues to spread it. So, I don't know. We'll just leave that there. I thought it was interesting.
U.S. made long-range. It's not like nobody knows where they came from. It's not like nobody knows we've been funding this. It's a proxy war. The whole thing is fucking insane.
This is not a proxy war. Russia is the aggressor. Russia decided to invade a sovereign country in Ukraine, and because the United States is Ukraine's ally, we are providing them with the aid necessary to defend themselves. This isn't a proxy war, and this is something that the right keeps on saying without it being true. This is not a proxy war, although it is a good investment for the United States of America to not have to put troops on the ground and fight against Russia ourselves. All we are doing is standing next to our allies so they can defend themselves against an aggressor. That's all that's going on here.
It's insane. Come to the negotiation table. Sit down. Work this out. Stop killing everybody.
If Russia wanted this war to end, they could end it. They could withdraw their troops from all of the territories inside Ukraine, and the war would end. Why isn't Joe Rogan pushing for that? Instead, it sounds like the onus is on Ukraine to come to the negotiating table, to be the one to, what? Cede land to Russia? I mean, what exactly does he want to go down in this meeting? The onus is on Russia to come to an agreement. If they want to pull out of all of their territories and get their men out of the country, then the war would stop.
U.S. allows Ukraine to use long-range missiles. So what did they say? Someone had said that, like, CNN was saying that it was a good thing, which I think is how? How has the left gone so far crazy that they think it's a good thing to launch missiles?
The left is just standing up for an ally. We are not beating that war drum because we want to go to war. We want to stand up for a democracy, Ukraine, not to mention they are our ally, and we want to push back against authoritarian leaders like Putin. Because if we just cede the territory now, what type of precedent does that set? Russia will just be doing the same exact thing in a few years down the line. We have seen this time and time and time again. We don't want to be in war for war's sake. We want to stand up for these democratic principles and stand behind our allies. It's that simple.
That's what's scary about life is, like, you don't want to pay attention to that shit. You just want to live your life. You want to just be carefree and have fun and do the thing that you're passionate about. And meanwhile, the world is burning. And
you
you're
can't
just
do
hoping
anything
it doesn't
about it.
get
It's
to
like,
you.
at that high level, it's like there's nothing
Well, we can. We voted Trump in, and
Yeah,
his idea is to stop all this shit, and hopefully he can do that.
Yeah.
But
Donald Trump continues to say that he is going to end this on day one. He even said that he was going to end it before he even got inaugurated. But I guess that's a campaign promise broken. He also has not outlined anything resembling a plan that would have this conflict come to an end. And everybody's worst fear is that Donald Trump is going to cozy up to Putin and just give Putin everything he wants and let him save face on his way out, all while to the detriment of Ukraine. That is the fear right now. So I hope that Trump can work out some sort of deal that is beneficial to our ally, but he has provided no such plan.
you know, man, fuck. We got 60 more days until Trump gets in, or whatever it is. How many days is it, Jamie? But who knows? Maybe once he gets in, they'll ramp it up. Who knows? Maybe they'll sabotage his administration. That's what's even more scary. People don't want him in power. And the people that are in power don't want to leave power, and they'll try every way they can to keep it. 60 days from today. All right.
On the news.
60 days.
Keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah, just hope Putin understands what's going on as well, and Zelensky doesn't do anything stupid. But saying that Putin's terrified, God damn it.
It's like you're trying to like tug the tail of a fucking sleeping
Dragon.
Dragons.
Yeah. Also, Zelensky, can I get a drug test?
I think what is most frustrating about this is that if the tables were turned and it was the United States that were invaded by a neighboring country, Joe Rogan would not be talking like this. Why is it suddenly okay for us to cede power or whatever to Russia? Since when is that okay? And because Joe Rogan doesn't really inform himself on many of these issues, it doesn't seem like he reads past the headlines. He just allows his head to be filled with different commentators from the right. He's very susceptible to Russian propaganda. And I would argue that Putin using that intercontinental ballistic missile was a form of propaganda. He wanted to rile people up into thinking that World War III was on the way. That way people like Joe Rogan would go on his podcast and start hyping it up, trying to put the onus on Ukraine. And I think we should look at this video as well. This is a famous Ukrainian boxer. His name is Wladimir Klitschko, I believe is how you pronounce it. And he had a great response to Joe Rogan and kind of contextualized like what is actually going on with using these missiles and whatnot.
Joe Rogan, I listened to your latest podcast. I'm sending you this video to let you know that I disagree. You talk about these American weapons being sent to Ukraine, which you believe will lead to the Third World War. So, let me tell you that you're repeating Russian propaganda. Putin's Russia is in trouble, so they want to scare you and people like you. His war was supposed to last 3 days. It has lasted 3 years, thanks to the heroism and sacrifice of us Ukrainians. So you're using the only weapon that Putin really intends to use, propaganda. And this weapon really weakens our democracies.
And he is exactly right about that. Russia and Putin plan or hope that their propaganda works as well as it has been working. When Joe Rogan goes on his podcast and uncritically spreads these narratives that put the onus on Ukraine to bring this war to an end, even though Russia is the actual aggressor, that is a huge win for Putin. It is a huge win when Joe Rogan goes out there and says, World War III is on its way unless Ukraine does something. So it is a huge issue that we have to combat in some way. It is such a shame that Joe Rogan is so susceptible to this type of propaganda, to these different conspiracies. I don't think there is a conspiracy that Joe Rogan saw that he didn't like. And that is an uphill battle for us because he doesn't appear to want to inform himself on these issues, and he doesn't provide any critical pushback against these issues either. And that has a huge detrimental impact on people that might be listening and not following politics on a daily basis. So I thought it was interesting. I think we should keep our eye on it. I think People like Rogan don't intend to do this stuff on purpose, obviously, but they end up being useful idiots for people like Putin because they're uncritically evaluating this stuff. So I think it is more noble to stand up with our allies, to push back against authoritarian leaders like Putin, and that's exactly what we should be doing. And it makes it that much harder when we have such huge figures on the right that are pushing pro-Putin narratives. So I will leave it there for now. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share it with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. I am trying to make it to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and I am like this close. So if you could subscribe, I would very much appreciate that. If you want to see how Donald Trump's mass deportations could impact our country, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.